Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this latest edition of ReTFOS, where I take old stories I've narrated and update into modern audio standards. This particular story is part of a 6-part series, and is the final part in this series. It is called The Impossible. I hope that you enjoy. Planet Sky 1, City Number 1, Sanctum Number 1. In a darkened, moistened chamber, located beneath 3 kilometers of solid rock and multiple layers of shielding and technological defenses, the monolithic body of the Queen stirred in her sanctum. Prince Sky swarmed over her, attending her and hoping to be noticed, but her vast mind was elsewhere. A command requiring such a tiny fraction of her consciousness had to be hardly thought of at all, and several Praetorians moved in, picking up the princes and hauling them off like bags of straw, despite each having the weight of a car. Half the armada had escaped, including all 3 of the broodmothers leading the assault. They would take at least another week to reach the nearest outpost, Taurus's designated territory on Sky 7. She turned over the possibilities and strategies, considering what she had learned. This was not the first time the brood fleet had been defeated in its initial encounter. Not even the 100th. But the true strength of Sky lay not in the sheer numbers or coordinated loyalty to their broodmothers, but in the capacity to adapt. No race, not her own nor any other she had counted, was so easily willing to sacrifice its own population like that in an attempt to spare an attacking enemy. It was pure insanity. Nothing could reach the space age with such a poor sense of self-preservation. There were 2 possibilities. Either humans really were that insane, or they had a way of sacrificing mind-boggling amounts of ships without losing any lives. If the first was true, she had little to worry about. The humans would be defeated in no time. But the Grand Queen had not conquered the entire galaxy over 100 times by hoping for the best. She had to assume that they had some unknown technology allowing them to make such sacrificial plays easily. Mobile-controlled ships, perhaps. They would not be the first of species to automate objects, just the first to do it so well. She began the drafts for a new ship, covered weapon ports, and a defended engine that wouldn't be so vulnerable, yes. More forward thrust, a blockade runner that could slip past an automated ships and attack the control center, yes. With the ship spun, making it more difficult for the enemy to target specific hard points, good, yes. She integrated the concept into the design. A planetary alert brushed the edge of her mind, and her consciousness snapped home to view the threat. An unknown ship had just warped into local space. It was about twice as far out as the limits of Sky 1's huge ring system. That would be the human ship using the warp engine from the cannibalized Zydus. She hadn't expected it so soon. The warp engine she had anticipated them adapting since receiving the report from Broodmother Naya. Managing the leap in a single impressive jump was also anticipated. The energy of the Sun Sphere would make such things possible. The surprise was the navigational data. There was no way humans could interface with the Zydus. It was far, far too specialized. How had they uncovered the coordinates for Sky homeworld? It didn't matter. The ship had clearly arrived from so far out to avoid instant reprisal, but in that case, they had underestimated her. She moved one of her hidden arms in the ring system, and a stream of anti-protons were ejected in a jet out into space. In a fraction of a second, the human ship was obliterated. It hadn't even had the time to run a scan on her planet. The Grand Queen felt a pang of regret at the expenditure. Weaponized antimatter took time and resources to manufacture. It was a task so delicate she oversaw it personally. Then she detected an anomaly in space, an area near the wreckage that had stopped acting consistent with the universal laws of physics. Multiple more anomalies opened up and around it. Hundreds, thousands more. What were they? She began analysis. Then the ships started to arrive. Station Prometheus Alpha, in orbit around Material World Prometheus, observing Second Dyson Sphere around Julianus 6. 10 million drone ships. That's how many Station Commander Church had set as the number to a room of incredulous staff and excited scientists. To make the Brood Queen surrender, the best course of action was a show of power so utterly overwhelming it brooked absolutely no chance of fighting back, making it utterly clear that there was simply no defense sufficient. 10 million ships. Tactics would be completely useless against those kinds of numbers. Maneuver how you want, position how you want, even if they have outplayed humanity at every turn, even if they destroyed 50 ships for every one of theirs that went down, it wouldn't be enough. The eggheads had crunched a few numbers and informed Church that the creation would take Genesis a couple days to work through. That was fine. The stellar coordinates and information about Sky warp capabilities they had learned from Taurus told them that it would be at least 2 weeks before they were likely to see another enemy ship near Prometheus. 10 million ships could be finished in a comfortable period of time. Honestly, the most significant difficulty would be in just commanding that many at once, the sheer computing power needed. If Prometheus Alpha wasn't already kitted out with the supercomputers designed to process the massive quantities of data involved in observing a Dyson sphere, they would have no chance. Thank Feck, thought Church to himself, they don't know where Earth is. Prometheus was well defended, even without considering the insane things they could do with Sagan's energy. He could think of a few things as disastrous as the Grand Queen getting the location of Earth and hitting humanity's soft targets. 41 hours after they began the production goal, their ultimate fleet was finished. From the station, it looked like a field of moving stars drifting across the sky, and leading them, at the head of the staging point. That ship could go anywhere, you know. Dr. Ray's sounded melancholic, uncharacteristically contemplative. The power of a Dyson sphere, the warp technology of the Sky. Before that ship, distance is an academic concept. It could zip across the galaxy like it was crossing the street to pick up some milk from the dairy. It could go to Andromeda, could go beyond that, to the other side of the universe. Church had to admit he hadn't really thought about it. She was right. The more power it had, the more distance the warp-capable ship could cover. I wonder how far that really is, he said. Dr. Ray's turned from the station windows where the twinkling artificial constellation of ships was visible to raise an eyebrow at the commander Church. How far? What is? Space is big, Samantha. I know we say the energy from Sagan is functionally infinite, but if anything can tax its limits, it would be a warp trip across the wider universe. How far could a ship warp to with all the energy from Sagan? Doesn't really matter. She looked back at the fleet. We can just make another. Another? She smiled knowingly. Another sphere, Thomas. We can just make another sphere. They loaded up the ship they had built around the Zydus warp drive with a wormhole beacon connected to the stellar staging point, then powered it up with the massive energy of the Sagan. The 2 days had given them enough time for careful experimentation with warp jumping. They were confident they could take it directly to Sky 1. The only question was whether Taurus had been honest with her Grand Queen's location. Still, I think I should be on there, sir. Lieutenant Matthews had a bit of an old-fashioned streak and believed that, while it was all fine and dandy having a drone fleet, there should still be a human presence at the head. We've been over this, Emmett. Too risky. Taurus told us even she doesn't really know what kind of defenses the Grand Queen has around that planet. Matthews bit his lip, unconvinced, but he didn't argue. A countdown began, the control room fusing over its detail of that, confirming that the wormhole aboard the Pathfinder had a stable link to the staging ground behind it, and all the readings were green across the board. Then the warp engine activated, and the Pathfinder was gone. They lost contact immediately. Holy feck! One of the techs analyzing the readings had a very unprofessional moment. Sir, I think the Pathfinder was just destroyed. What? I thought warp was stable. Not by the jump, sir. Something else. I'm reading debris coming from the wormhole on the outside. It looks like it jumped in successfully, then was almost instantly destroyed. Almost everyone in the room looked at Emmett, who had gone rather pale. Planet Sky 1, City Number 1, Sanctum Number 1. The Grand Queen was not accustomed to feeling fear. It was an alien sensation, something that hadn't touched her in countless eons. She didn't feel it when there were only 100 human ships approaching her world. She didn't feel it when they became 1,000. But they kept coming, more and more and more. 10,000, 100,000, 1 million, 2 million. Her body, protected in her sanctum, shivered. Though she stayed in calm control, she could not stop the pure instinctive response to such a monolithic threat. She knew the sensations felt by the 3 broodmothers she had sent to take the sun sphere. The feeling of suddenly finding yourself up against a force so titanic there seemed no hope of victory. Could she even deal with as many ships with her defenses? Maybe. She didn't like the uncertainty in that thought. She could see all her daughters before her, feel them through her psychic network, watching the unfolding event. If she fell, would humanity come for them? Probably not. They showed mercy to the attacking armada. But it wouldn't matter. Even in hibernation, her thoughts were there, perhaps not consciously, but an underlying stream that all her daughters relied on, sometimes without even realizing it. A great psychic linchpin. Her death would have a cascading effect. It would be devastating. Many of her brood would die with her. If the Grand Queen could sigh, she would have at that moment. It was time for the kind of drastic measures she had not employed since the great exterminations that had led to her becoming the leader of her entire race, the lost ancient matriarch. This was a threat simply too great. Millions of lesser activities ceased as the Grand Queen focused her unparalleled mind. Station Prometheus Alpha, in orbit around material world Prometheus, observing the Sagan Dyson sphere around Juliana 6. The ships were still pouring through. Church had almost cried with relief when they had not started spontaneously exploding like the Pathfinder had done. If the Grand Queen had such power that she could destroy with total discretion anything within hundreds of thousands of kilometers of her planet, Jesus, she didn't even want to think about that. All right, that ought to have her properly sweating under the collar. A light chuckle rippled through the room. Open communications on the ultraviolet channel, and let's begin discussing terms of Without ceremony, without any warning whatsoever, an alien voice clamped down, a voice like on Church's mind. The force of it swept over him like a wrecking ball, like an earthquake. He couldn't move, he could barely breathe. Through straining eyes, he saw the entire station staff within his field of vision go completely rigid, hands freezing at consoles, straining neck muscles and tensing. So you are the humans who have given me so much trouble. I should offer you congratulations. None have forced me to take matters so far into my own hands since before your civilization existed. The sound was thunderous, overwhelming. It was like hearing his own stream of consciousness in another voice, out of his control. Pressure assaulted his body. He felt as if he was simultaneously drowning and being crushed alive. Blood trickled down his nose. A pain beyond anything he could describe assaulted him. It looks like my assumption was correct. A fleet of drone ships created by converting energy into mass. Very clever. And all controlled from this room. Well, let's take care of that. The row of techs at the stations moved like zombies, jerking fingers spidering over the controls with none of their usual practice ease. A series of commands were inputted into the consoles. Several security overrides were requested and given. Say goodbye to your fleet. The signals from the 10 million drone ships started blinking out rapidly, every ship turning its weapons onto the ships around it. In the skies above Sky 1, a light show of destruction, so impressive it could be seen from the planet's surface, erupted in space. Now all that takes care of itself. Let me see what makes this impressive species tick, as you would say. Without knowing how or why, Church felt his memories being invaded. Suddenly, he was a child, looking up at his father as he boarded his Air Force jet. Then he was a teenager, weeping uncontrollably by his mother's hospital bedside, saying his final goodbye. He was training with the SAS. Then he was being promoted, his officers praising his calm leadership. Then he was seeing the news of Carden expedition finally bearing fruit, of wormhole tech being proven. I see. Humanity does not have the technology to traverse space rapidly. Only use 2 beacons connecting points in space, rendering the distance between them null. Genius! That explains much. Like why I could sense your mind so close despite knowing how far away you are. And your homeworld is not far from where you built your sun sphere. You have more wormholes nearby connecting to Earth. Yes, I see it now. No. More memories. He was being given command of a project vital to humanity. Station Alpha. was to be dropped in Premessa, and production of the ultra-thin energy siphoning sheets of transmission relays would begin immediately. Then the planet was used up. There was a funnel for Sail Cardon in space, his body injected into Juliana 4 as his will dictated. The station was moved to the second, now first planet of the solar system, remained Prometheus Alpha. Since this would be its permanent home now. Good! You have excellent grasp of the general details of humanity's defenses. More specific information is being downloaded from your other staff. One final thing I must know. How did you find my whole world? He was standing on the landing platform, watching Taris's ship descend. They were walking to the conference room. Church felt waves of soft confusion as the Grand Queen examined his memories of Taris, describing the history of Sky Empire, the cycle of hibernation and awakening. What is she? Then, that one memory, that one moment. Please, destroy the Grand Queen. Suddenly, the pressure on Church was alleviated, not gone completely, but he no longer felt that he was on the verge of psychic death. He fell to his knees, grasping for air. He felt as if he had just been resuscitated from the brink. About half the control room had passed out. Church tried to summon the strength to stand and check on the nearest person, but his legs didn't listen to him. He flopped onto the control room floor like a fish, feeling Dr. Ray's arm fall limply over his torso as she went down next to him. He couldn't tell if she was even alive. He could still feel the titanic presence of the Grand Queen. He knew she hadn't released the crew deliberately. It had been a moment of pure shock, so significant it had shattered her concentration. Church tried to get a read on her emotions. Fear stabbed at him. More than anything, he didn't want to go through that again. To feel himself pushed out of his own head, to see his mind laid bare and all his memories and thoughts ripped from him with a childish ease. If she was angry at the betrayal, would she be even harsher? But flowing through the heart of the Grand Queen was only an overwhelming tidal wave of pure sadness, of hurt. If she were a human, she wouldn't be screeching with fury. She would be collapsing in despair. Taris, my daughter! Why? Through the throat barely recovered, Church rasped an answer out loud, heard by the very still conscious member of the control crew as well as the Grand Queen. Because she doesn't want this. He felt her attention snap back to him, not destructive this time, but still witheringly oppressive. He felt like a swimmer in the water with a massive shark, in her element, at her mercy. She doesn't want the cycle, doesn't want to kill, doesn't want to die. Taris. For a time there was silence, then a tired new voice echoed over the minds of the crew, sounding, for all the world, like a contrite little girl. It's true, Mother. It's all true. I don't want to do this anymore. I'm sorry. Planet Sky 1. City number 1. Sanctum number 1. The Grand Queen's body felt still. Her Praetorians didn't know what to do. They had never been without a thread of constant, flowing instructions when the Queen was awake before. She felt numb. Why did this all for you? She felt as if she stood at the base of a great pit. From the room, her 30,000 daughters all looked down upon her, silent, expressionless, unknowable. Every time I awoke, there was so much death, so much loss. Daughters I had created in love for centuries had slaughtered one another. Every time I awoke, I brought you together, gave you a universe. It was all for you. Silence again. The Grand Queen felt like she was truly seeing her offspring for the first time. She looked into their minds, like she had done millions of times before, and asked to see their true feelings. The response was like a physical wave striking her actual body. Her Praetorians panicked as her massive bulk jolted. Brood mothers who loved diplomacy and peace. Brood mothers who loved conquest and war. Brood mothers who just wanted to be left alone in their territory, tending their own hosts. Brood mothers who wanted to explore, to send their children to find new worlds and discover new things. We never wanted the universe, Mother. Tara spoke for the brood mothers, all of them. We only wanted to be ourselves. Earth, 5 years later. No one had ever seen the lecture theatre this packed before. As the first university to have an orbital campus, the architecture was ultra-modern. Sleek statues of golden figures sat in alcoves along the walls. Row after row of packed seats led the eye down to the stage where two figures stood. One human woman here from New Zealand, and one something else. She looked for all the world like a pretty human female, with an age somewhere in the late 20s perhaps. But a closer look revealed the differences. The facial coloration, the small curving horns, the slitted eyes. So you see, calling the Skull-Eye a race of snake people, as many have come to colloquially refer to them, is not at all accurate. Dr. Reyes was speaking. More precisely, the Skull-Eye could almost be called a race of static shapeshifters. The broodmothers, like our friend Terrace here, are capable of producing offspring from their main bodies with a truly staggering variety of optional genetic modifications and physical differences. Terrace, if you would be so kind. The broodmother stepped forward to show off cameras displaying her features on the screen behind her. I made this form specifically to interact with humanity. A body that could converse easily and be recognized in human society. But at the same time, my preliminary research suggested that it would be a bad idea to perfectly replicate the human form. That an alien would be more accepted if they had a small handful of features that would mark them as different for people to recognize. Elsewise, I would be unconsciously seen as an intruder of sorts, a spy attempting to infiltrate human society, no matter how open I was about my lineage. The captivated buzzing in the theater picked up, dozens of academic elite leaning forward in their seats with rabid curiosity. That about concludes this overview of our first contact with Skull-Eye. Dr. Reyes waved a hand and shut down the screen with its scrolling data and close-ups of Terrace. Broodmother Terrace has kindly agreed to be our guest for the next 2 years. During that time, we expect a great deal of cultural exchange and learning to take place, starting right here. She will be in the foyer for the rest of the night, mixing and mingling, and we highly recommend you take this chance to get to know our new ambassador from Skull-Eye race. Tomorrow's lecture will be concerning the Skull-Eye theory of the Great Bioseed. Thank you. The buzzing erupted into questions as the alien and human walked side by side off the stage, letting the men and women who had been invited into the premiere lecture scramble to be the first to meet Ambassador Terrace and ask the million questions they had. Dr. Reyes could only marvel at the limitless energy she had. Terrace had dealt with everyone with a patience that was on the border of being saint-like. But this was her job, her calling, the thing she wanted to do more than anything else. There hadn't been any threat of war in half a decade, and Matthew's expedition just reported leaving the Virgo supercluster and was receiving data in real time from over 100 million light-years away from Earth. The Curie Dyson sphere was 80% completed, with plans for a fourth already in the works. The new age began with peace. End of chapter and end of little mini-series. I would just like to thank the T5 supporters: Bushmaster 117, Caspar Arnholtz, Draxoon WRE, Elijah Silvercross, Gray, John Carrington, and Severin Cerberus. Thank you very much.